Thank you for watching us on YouTube. But did you know that if you're on the go, you can get the full show as a podcast now? You can get our morning breakdown of the most important topics facing our country, news not being covered by the mainstream media, interviews with change-making progressives, and info on what you can actually do about all this. Search for The Damage Report on your favorite podcast app and subscribe so you know when new episodes are ready to go. Excited to be joined now on The Damage Report by Jose Antonio Vargas, author of this book, Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. Jose, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very glad to have you here. So very excited to talk about what's in this book. It includes many things, covers many things. One, of course, is your life story. So for those who might not be familiar with your prior work, what's your life been about?
Yeah, so I was born in the Philippines and was sent here when I was 12, back in 1993. And then I found out I was here illegally when I applied for a driver's permit when I was 16.
Wow.
That's how I found out. And then the saving grace actually was a few months after that, my English teacher said I asked too many annoying questions and I should do this thing called journalism. And I found out that when you write a news story in a newspaper, your name would be on the paper, right? It said by Jose Antonio Vargas. So my 16-year-old self decided that if I can't be here because I don't have the right papers, what if my name was actually in the newspaper? Mm-hmm. That was the only reason why I became a journalist. And I did that from 16 to 30. So I basically was hiding in plain sight. Using fake documents, breaking immigration laws. I worked just so I can have a career and I can make a living. I can pay taxes because people like me pay taxes. And then 7 years ago, decided to come out publicly as undocumented when the only piece of ID I had was a driver's license from the state of Oregon. It was the only piece of ID I had. You know, most states in this country don't let people like me drive. So that was expiring and I had to figure out what I'm going to do. So I came out as undocumented and founded an organization called Define American. Check it out, defineamerican.com. And this book is kind of what the past 7 years has been about, which is I really wanted to write a book that dealt with the psychological state of being in this country illegally. What does it mean to be in a place that that the government tells you you're not supposed to be here? Mm-hmm. And using language in the book that's really beyond kind of partisan politics, beyond immigration reform, even beyond Trump. I mean, I bet you if I'd called this book Dear Trump, mm-hmm. right, it'd probably make more noise. But you know, this is way bigger than Trump.
Yeah.
Right. It's way bigger than Trump.
And you talk about obviously these are problems that you've been dealing with through your whole life, back in the blissful days when we didn't even know barely who Trump was politically. Yeah. So you mentioned there that you found out initially about your undocumented status while applying for a driver's license, and you were lucky that in that case that I believe it was a woman chose not to report you or do anything like that. And I'm sure through the course of your life, I mean, having to potentially dodge people who might out you, which is obviously incredibly consequential. What has that been like through the course of your life, never knowing who you can trust necessarily until you finally came out much later on in your life?
So that's actually part of why I wrote the book, because, I mean, the book is actually structured in 3 parts: lying, passing, and hiding. Because when I think about my life in this country for the past 25 years, that's what it's been about. I had to lie. I had to try to pass. Like when I first found out I was here, quote unquote, as an illegal alien, right? That's the language that they used back in the 90s, which ironically is still the language that the president uses now. Yeah. I thought the first thing I had to do was get rid of my really thick Filipino accent, right? So I did that by listening to a lot of Bill Moyers on PBS and listening to a lot of Dr. Dre. I figured if I can sound white and black, if I can do Bill Moyers and Dr. Dre, I can pass, right? And then you hide. And, I didn't realize until I wrote this book that when you're forced to lie from the government, right, and lie about who you are and how you got here and kind of all these little details about life, I didn't realize that it actually meant hiding from myself as well. When the reality, though, is I could not have survived in this country for 25 years if people weren't lying, passing, and hiding for me. Mm-hmm. The woman at the DMV was the very first person who allowed me to pass. Yeah. Right? Like she could have reported me. She could have said, hey, this green card is fake. We should deport you. Instead, she said, this is fake. Don't come back here again.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So we don't hear about those people when we talk about immigration in this country, right? Like they're not a part of the conversation. And in this book, they're absolutely a part of the conversation.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mention in the book is that the media fails to report even sort of basic facts and truths about undocumented people. You made a reference to the fact that, yes, you do actually pay taxes, which we are led to believe by Republican politicians generally that is not the case. So what should people understand about these communities that they're not being told by the media?
And this is, and I'm saying this as somebody who worked for the Washington Post as a political reporter, who's been published in the New Yorker and the New York Times and quote unquote mainstream media. When we look back at this era, especially at this Trump era, one of the things we're going to realize, 30, 20 years from now, is that in many ways, the mainstream news media has been complicit in telling the lies that we have continually told about who people like me are. And the fact that the lies that we take from society, the lies that we don't want to be American, the lies that that we are taxing government services. When the reality is, as an undocumented person, I pay into taxes and Social Security. I have paid so much taxes, I should be a Republican. And I've paid so much Social Security, but I can't get any of it back. According to the Social Security Administration, the primary source, undocumented workers like me have contributed $100 billion to the Social Security Fund in the past decade. Now, When was the last time you heard that in the New York Times and the Washington Post and NPR?
I've literally never heard that before, actually.
Why? Why haven't you heard that? Because it doesn't fit the master narrative. Right. Actually, when I was writing this book, I told a story about Chuck Todd. Well, I know Chuck because he used to be a political reporter. And so after Trump clinched the Republican nomination, Chuck Todd was going to interview him for Meet the Press. So I emailed Chuck and I said, "Hey, Chuck, can we get on the phone?" Got him on the phone. I said to Chuck, "Hey, Chuck, did you know that undocumented Asian people, Filipinos, Koreans, Chinese, Indians are actually the fastest growing undocumented population? And it's not Mexican, it's not Latinos." He was like, "No, I didn't know that." Well, can you ask Trump what the wall and the border has to do with undocumented Asian people?
Yeah.
And then I followed up on email with the primary source, with the sources of the information. And unfortunately, Chuck never asked the question.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit, right? It doesn't fit the narrative. So what is our job, our responsibility in the news media to make sure that we are telling accurate contextual narratives about what this issue really is about?
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Look, I'm gonna offer to you, I did not know that was the fastest growing population as well.
Yeah.
So, well, at least now we're all learning things.
Because we just don't. Or like I was on the Today Show to promote the book, like the first interview I did. And the host of the show, one of the questions he asked was, "Why haven't you gotten legal?" Right? But, it was amazing because I kept thinking to myself, wait a second. If journalists themselves don't know why people like me can't just get legal, and the fact that there's no line for me to get in the back of, then how are we supposed to inform the public? If we journalists don't know what the facts are of the issue and the process, right? Process, not the politics, the process, the why and the how, then how are we supposed to inform the public?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously part of the problem in terms of the media is, are there any undocumented hosts of these programs? And how often are they even guests on these programs?
That's actually something that we're working at Define American. I mean, we try to get as many doctors. I'm just one person. I'm just one story. So how do we introduce more complex storylines from different kinds of people? I mean, even for example, me, right? That's a big one for me, right? Since like so many undocumented immigrants are victims of sexual assault, right? So we have to connect these dots and we have to hear from more undocumented people who are telling their stories so that we can better understand really what the issue is. Because my understanding, and I'm saying this as someone who's a journalist who happens to be undocumented, is immigration is the most controversial yet least understood issue in the American public.
Interesting. Yeah. And and by the way, it's about time people get to know a little bit about it because political campaigns, especially presidential campaigns, continue to be waged in large part on the topic of immigration.
it is not a surprise that Donald Trump announced, that decided that he was going to make immigration the central part of his campaign.
Yeah.
You know how he's going to get reelected? I already predict that one of the campaign issues that he's going to rest his reelection on is getting rid of birthright citizenship.
Yeah. Well, he has certainly hinted at that.
Oh yeah, and the fact right now that he has really the Trump administration has blurred the lines between illegal and legal immigration. They just want immigrants, right? But again, what is the responsibility of the news media around this? Whenever you read a story in the Washington Post or the New York Times or here in the NPR, how many times do they quote the Center for Immigration Studies, Numbers USA, FAIR, which are basically hate. There are anti-immigrant hate groups.
Yeah.
And because in the news media, we always like to pretend that there's two equal sides to an issue.
Yeah.
Right? They keep quoting them that like they're actually experts when they're not.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is true in all areas, certainly in this one. It's so consequential that we should do much more to be on the lookout for that. Well, I wish that we had more time, unfortunately, but Jose Antonio Vargas, thank you so much for joining us. The book is Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. Check it out, and thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, anytime. Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.